Hi everybody, this is Carmen with Main Street Yoga. I am here today this Monday morning in my house, and I'm getting ready to upload this and send it to you. When I'm coming up with things that I want to give you, they're usually like little tidbits and tools for you in your practice. Today I thought I would start with kind of a misnomer about downward facing dog. Downward facing dog is technically an advanced posture because we are putting our head below our heart. So it can be triggering for people with blood pressure issues, people who work with pressure, vertigo, things like that. So if any of those ideas are relevant to you, just be careful and know that you can always lower your knees and come into table or child's pose instead. One very common question I get when I'm teaching downward facing dog is, are my heels supposed to be on the ground? And the answer is no. And you'll have a lot of teachers say stuff like bring your heels to the ground or push your heels into the ground. What they're really trying to do is they're trying to send some of the weight back so that you don't have it in the front upper half of the body. But let's talk about the flexion of the ankle really quick. So when you're working with pressing out through the heel, there's a couple things that happen. So a lot of times when we have our foot up like this, where we don't have the pressure behind the toes, we tend to kind of flare our toes a little bit to exaggerate how much flexion we actually have. Most individuals only have 10%, and in rare cases, people have 15 to 20% flexion, and that means they move the upper part of their foot closer to their calf. The people that have a heightened amount of flexion are typically people who have like ballet or gymnastics backgrounds, individuals who naturally have long muscles in the calves, or just have an openness to the body. Some people just have more naturally flexible bodies than others. It's not a right, wrong, whatever. It's just how we're all made. Some people are taller, some people are shorter, some people have a different muscle layout. So when you're working with your downward facing dog, if you are really struggling to get the heels down to the ground, I would invite you to stop. I would invite you to consider what it would be like to not do that and to live in the space where you can shift the weight back without coming into jamming the heels into the ground. Now, I haven't warmed up today, so I'm going to be pretty cold, which won't be any different than a typical student beginning a class. So I'm going to come into downward facing dog. I'm going to give you some options. You might not be able to hear me as well, so I want you to watch my back and my legs, my lower extremities, so that you can kind of get a sense of, and I'm going to exaggerate them for demonstration purposes, how this functions in the body and what I tend to see a lot. So, shoulders over the fingertips, curling the toes under, and then I'm going to adjust myself so that you can see the lower half of the body. So, downward facing dog. So this is my downward facing dog, but that's not necessarily to say that's yours. Notice that my legs aren't straight. If my legs were straight, I would start to hyperextend the knees. What happens to most people when they start to straighten the legs, they start to pull at the low back. There is a relationship between the backs of the legs and the low back. What you want to do is you want to start to bend the knees so that you can activate the obliques in the core and make the weight easier in the arms and legs. Balance the weight a little bit easier so that you can have more space. It also makes the posture more comfortable. You can then kind of pedal out through the heels and start to find space in the lower extremities so that this can become a posture that you develop. Maybe someday the heels hit the ground and maybe they never do, but that should not be the goal in this posture. What we want to focus on is the low back and the core in addition to the arms. But for today's purposes, let's focus on the legs and noticing how when you straighten the legs, it can pull on the low back, but if you bring that little bend, you can find more space in the low back, making the posture a lot more comfortable. Anyway, I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye.